The checkmate move is Kharg Island. Between 90 and 94% of Iran's entire crude oil export capacity flowed through that one island. Cut off Kharg Island, and you cut off the payroll. Economic collapse is what actually ends regimes. What is the price when the regime eventually achieves nuclear capability? And it's exactly the moment when doing so would be the most catastrophic mistake. 90 to 94% of Iran's oil revenue flows through Kharg Island. I want to tell you what keeps me up at night about Iran. It's not whether or not we can win. I believe we can. I believe we are winning. It's not whether the Iranian people want to be free. They have already proven that they do. 47,000 of them have died in the streets to show us that they want to be free. What keeps me up at night is the very real possibility that we will declare victory before the job is done, and that we will accept some partial outcome, a ceasefire, a partial dismantling, a negotiated pause, and we will call it a win, and we'll bring our military home. We spike the football, and 5 years from now, the remnants of the regime reconstitute the way the Taliban reconstituted in Afghanistan after we left. Except this time, Iran has a nuclear weapon. Let me be clear. Iran has lied to us for 47 years. They have never kept their word. They are like cornered rats. They will say and do anything to buy 2 more weeks of time, to live 2 more weeks, or at least until April 28th, when they think Congress will revoke Trump's ability to wage war. April 28th is the end of the 60-day period in which Trump can act unilaterally without congressional approval. They're hoping Trump will be restrained by Congress, that they'll get a respite, that they can reconstitute themselves and regain their control over the Iranian people. If they do that, we'll be back in this same situation in 5 years. The price we pay for leaving early is always higher than the price of finishing the job. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what finishing the job in Iran looks like, why Kharg Island is the key to the whole strategy, and why the discipline to stay the course, no matter how politically inconvenient it becomes, is the most important thing this administration can do right now. Welcome, Patriots, to Common Sense for America. I am Bruce Rutherford, your host and commentator, coming to you from the beautiful Westwood Golf Club in Houston, Texas. This is episode 3 of our 4-part series. We have talked about why America cannot afford isolationism. We have seen the whole chessboard and the 4 players coordinating their actions. Today, we zoom in on the single most critical move on that chessboard. If you're watching on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe. If you're listening to one of our podcasts, please subscribe and leave us a rating. Now let's get into it. Before I get into the strategy, I want to be direct about something that I think is not being said loudly enough right now. Trump has done something significant, something extraordinary in Iran. The pressure campaign, the strikes, the economic strangulation, the broad direction is right. I want to be clear about that. But doing the right thing in the right direction is not the same as finishing the job. And the history of American foreign policy is littered with examples of presidents who got the direction right and then stopped too soon for political reasons. The midterm elections are coming. Declaring victory plays well domestically. Bringing forces home plays well with the base. I understand the political pressure. If we accept a deal that leaves the Revolutionary Guard intact, leaves the nuclear program suspended rather than dismantled, leaves the proxy armies funded and operational, we will have spent enormous political capital, enormous military resources, and real American credibility, and we will have bought ourselves maybe 5 years before we're back at this at the beginning in Iran, before we're fighting again in Iran. We cannot let that happen. And understanding why requires understanding one small island in the Persian Gulf. Retired General Jack Keane, one of the most respected strategic minds in the American military establishment, identified what he called the checkmate move in Iran. Not the strikes, not the sanctions, not the diplomatic pressure. The checkmate move is Kharg Island. King understands something that gets lost in the daily news coverage. Wars are not won by military action alone. They are won by the larger economy with superior strategy and superior technology. And Iran has one critical vulnerability that makes everything else possible for us. Let me show you what that vulnerability looks like in hard numbers. Kharg Island is a small coral outcrop, roughly a third the size of Manhattan, sitting 25 kilometers off Iran's southern coast in the Persian Gulf. Over the last 12 months, between 90 and 94% of Iran's entire crude oil export capacity flowed through that one island. Iran earned approximately $53 billion in net oil revenues in 2025. Virtually all of it passed through Kharg Island. Those oil revenues fund the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, the regime's enforcement arm of 190,000 personnel. Those revenues fund the Basij militia with up to 1 million volunteers. Those oil revenues fund the secret police, the proxy armies in Lebanon, Gaza, Iraq, Yemen, Hezbollah and Hamas, the Houthis. All of it runs through the oil money flowing through Kharg Island. Every dollar of it goes to that terrorism. Cut off Kharg Island, and you cut off the payroll. You can't run an army. You cannot pay. You can't maintain internal control without funds to keep your enforcers loyal. You cannot sponsor proxy wars across 4 countries without hard currency flowing through your treasury. This is not a theory. This is arithmetic. General Keane is right. Controlling Kharg Island is the checkmate move because it converts military pressure into economic collapse. And economic collapse is what actually ends regimes, not bombs alone, not sanctions alone. The combination of military pressure and the economic strangulation that follows will give us the new leadership in Iran that we need. Now think about the Straits of Hormuz. Roughly 20% of the world's entire oil supply passes through that narrow waterway every single day. We have already seen what happens to global energy markets when that flow is threatened. Prices spike above $100 a barrel. Airlines, trucking, and manufacturing companies, and food production all feel the same ripple effect within weeks. Every American family feels that at the gas pump and at the grocery store. Iran has been threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz for years. We cannot allow them to trade one existential threat, nuclear weapons, for another existential threat, global economic disruption. Controlling the islands at the strategic choke point of the strait, including the islands Iran seized from the United Arab Emirates decades ago, is not aggression. It is restoring the legitimate order that allows the entire world's commerce to flow freely. Now I want to address the honest counterargument because it deserves a serious answer. Disrupting Kharg Island in the short term means a spike in global oil prices. I know that. Energy analysts have estimated that a sustained disruption would push oil well above $100 a barrel. That's painful. That is real. American families would feel it. But what is the long-term cost of allowing the regime to survive intact? What is the cost when Iranian proxies continue killing Americans and American allies? What is the price when the regime eventually achieves nuclear capability and with it complete control of the Hormuz Strait? Every calculation in the Middle East changes overnight. Short-term pain at the pump versus a nuclear-armed regime that has been chanting death to America for 47 years. That is the real choice on the table. Here's where history gives us the clearest warning. In the 1980s, the United States armed Saddam Hussein's Iraq against Iran. We provided military intelligence, technology, and political cover. We thought we were containing one threat. What we were actually doing is creating the next threat. By the 1990s, we were at war with Iraq, the very regime we had propped up. We spent the next 2 decades and $2 trillion dealing with the consequences of that incompetent, incomplete, contradictory strategy. The movie Charlie Wilson's War tells us a version of the same story on the other side of that decade. Charlie Wilson got the funding, got the weapons, got the Stinger missiles into Afghanistan. Soviets bled out and withdrew. And then Congress lost interest, cut the funding, and walked away. The power vacuum that followed was filled by the Taliban. The training and weapons we provided ended up in the hands of al-Qaeda. September 11th was in part the price of that unfinished business. We are at another one of those moments right now. The regime is weakened. It's on its knees. The Iranian people, I think, are ready. The economic pressure is working. This is exactly the moment when the temptation to declare victory and walk away is strongest, and it's exactly the moment when doing so would be the most catastrophic mistake. We must finish the job. We must stay the course. James Madison warned us that the means of defense against foreign danger historically become the instruments of tyranny at home. I've been thinking about that warning in the context of Iran. What Madison was really saying is that how we finish this matters as much as whether or not we finish it at all. We are not trying to build an American presence in the Persian Gulf. We are not trying to occupy Iran or install a government of our choosing. What we're trying to do is to remove the financial and military capacity of a terrorist regime that has declared war on America and American interests. Remove the nuclear threat before it becomes irreversible. Open a vital waterway to global commerce and create the conditions under which 93 million Iranians can choose their own future through free elections supervised by international interests. This is not imperialism. That is exactly what the founders meant by defending liberty. Jefferson sent the Navy to the Barbary Coast not to build an empire, but to protect American commerce and American interests. The principle is the same. The scale is larger, stakes are higher, but the principle is the same. Stay the course. I know that's not a glamorous answer. It does not really fit on a bumper sticker very well, but it's the truth, and it's the only strategy that actually works here. Control Kharg Island, control the strait, defund the IRGC, defund them completely. Give the Iranian army, which is separate from the Revolutionary Guard, give the Iranian army the approval to accept the surrender of the Iranian Guard, to accept the surrender of the secret police, to arrest members of the regime, and to sponsor and protect free and fair elections under international supervision. The opportunity and the support to guarantee free elections, lift the sanctions when a legitimate transitional government is replaced, help rebuild the economy, solve the water crisis that has been destabilizing Iran cities for years. A free and secular Iran, even a semi-democratic Iran, with its oil reserves and its extraordinarily well-educated population, becomes one of the most prosperous nations in the region within a decade. And on the day that happens, every proxy army Iran has been funding withers overnight. The entire architecture of Iranian-sponsored terrorism in the Mideast collapses, not because we bombed it into submission, but because the regime has funded it no longer. That is the prize. That is what finishing the job actually looks like. And it's absolutely achievable if we have the discipline not to walk away. Contact your representatives. Tell them you understand what is at stake. Tell them finishing the job in Iran is not optional. The lessons of Afghanistan, of Charlie Wilson's war, of every unfinished foreign commitment in American history, they're always the same. The price of leaving early is always higher than the price of staying the course. So here's what you need to remember. 90 to 94% of Iran's oil revenue flows through Kharg Island. Control that island and you control the regime's ability to survive. That is the checkmate move General Keane identified. That is the move that changes everything. This is winnable without a land invasion, without American occupation, without the catastrophic mistakes of Iraq and Afghanistan, but only if we have the discipline to finish it completely rather than declare a convenient victory and come home too soon. Tell me in our comment section, are you confident Trump will stay the course, or do you share my concern about a premature victory? Your thoughts matter, and I read every one of them. Next week, we come home. We're going to look at a constitutional question that 99% of Americans have never had explained to them honestly. That is what the 14th Amendment was actually written to do. Why a Supreme Court decision from 1857 is at the center of the birthright citizenship debate, and what common sense actually looks like on one of the most contentious domestic issues of our time. Until then, I am Bruce Rutherford, praying that God will bless you and yours, and God bless America.